First, welcome to the Pegasus office hours. This is our second office hours that we are handling here. Before starting the presentation, I'd like to share with you guys. We have a web page that we keep on our Pegasus website. You can find it in our posts, or if you come here in the contact part, there is the online Pegasus office hours. And we keep the agenda of what we talked in the past. About 2 months ago, we talked about the support for containers. So you can see the slides there. There are the video too. Increase a little bit. And the talk today that we're going to be doing about Jupyter. So here you can follow up with all the presentations that we are doing and with the videos too. So this is a very informal talk and meeting. So the idea is you guys participate too, ask questions, interrupt me. So feel free to, just chime up when you wanted to ask any questions. And we are going to do our best to answer you. So today, the theme of today, it's about developing Pegasus workflows via Jupyter Notebooks. So we have been supporting we have this API available since Pegasus 4.8. So currently we are on 4.8.1, and soon we're going to have new releases coming. So often and always we are improving. So we assume that you have a little bit of idea what a Pegasus does here, what are workflows, but anyway, the demos that we're going to do after, there is information on all the detailed information defining what is a workflow, what Pegasus needs, and where you can find all the required information to run your own workflows. So just as an introduction here, Jupyter Notebooks. Why Jupyter Notebooks? So if you take from the Jupyter website, it's an open source web application that allows us to create and share documents that contain live code, equations, visualizations, narrative text. So it's very fancy. You can do almost everything. And as you can see, several websites, they say it's almost limitless. So as far as your imagination can go, you can be playing with Jupyter Notebooks and do all kind of very nice, fancy, and funny stuff. As you can see a few of these examples here on the slide. But the key advantage, at least for me and for the community I've been seeing, it's when you do the collaboration, it facilitates a lot because other people can be collaborating in the same notebook, and you can see what have been doing in the past, how you're evolving your analysis. There is the easy access to the resources too, several building blocks, and it's evolving more and more. You see different even companies creating their own widgets for Jupyter, and you can add the widget and you can play a little bit. You have maps, you have several different options here. And one that it's I very much like, it's about the reproducibility, because it's easy to share your notebook with your friend, or if you publish a paper, you put a link to the notebook, someone can take this and reproduce what you did in the past. So this is very helpful. This is a very nice advantage. You see there are very large groups today using Jupyter Notebooks. For example, the LIGO gravitational wave data. You can find online the notebook for that. Some satellite imagery analysis, the 12 steps to the Navier-Stokes, computer vision, machine learning. I think it's the one that you have the most of the notebooks online. It's about machine learning today. So all of that gave us a very good motivation for us to also enable, why not execute workflows via the notebooks. So based on that, we decided last year to build an API for Pegasus, that it's a Jupyter Notebook API that runs on top of Pegasus and allows you to create the workflows, to monitor the workflows, run them, investigate a little bit what is happening with your workflow. And as you know, Pegasus, you can distribute these executions to run on campus clusters, HPC, HTC, clouds, or in your own local machine. So this is the high-level picture of the architecture. And this is exactly how we did this integration. So what happens here is, on the bottom, you have Pegasus as it is, and all the command line tools provided by Pegasus. So on the blue box here on the bottom, you can see the ones that we are running, using now for the Jupyter interface. We are not supporting all of them yet, but we are moving towards that. That's the idea. And we are constantly seeking for feedback. So if you have feedback on that, it would be great. Or if there is some functionality that it's not available yet, we'll be happy to discuss and see how we can support it for you. So basically you have Pegasus on the bottom, and we have a Jupyter API on top of it that it's actually wrapping all of these commands. So whatever you write in Jupyter, basically it's just being translated into the commands that Pegasus requires. And also the API is automatically generating all the required files to run in the workflow. There are the catalogs and the workflow file. And for this API, we use the DAX-free API already provided by Pegasus. So if you have been developing in the past Pegasus workflows, you're going to see that you have been used this API to build your own workflows, describe the dependencies, the jobs, the input data, output data transformations, so on. We also use the Init API. This is a Pegasus init command. If you're not used to that, this is a way we can help users to start building their workflows. So we use this API to provide the basic directory structure for the workflow, and also if you wanted to generate some tutorial workflows. So you can do that through the Pegasus Jupyter API too. So if you don't know how to start your workflow, you can generate a tutorial workflow from here and run it, everything from the Jupyter API. And then in addition to that, we also develop some Pegasus catalog APIs. That it's the site catalog, replica catalog, transformation catalog that previously you had to provide all of these catalogs, or you could use it programmatically too. But now for the Jupyter, you can write all of these catalogs into the Jupyter interface, and everything is going to be generated in the right place for you. So basically, this is the overview what we support today via Jupyter. So before I move on, if there is any question, please let me know. Okay. So how it works, just give you some examples here. This is a very illustrative example, but we're gonna see a demo after that has more detail, and we go into these details. So basically, what you need to do is once you have Pegasus installed, or in the same node that you have your Jupyter notebook installed, you just need to import this Pegasus, the Pegasus Jupyter instance. And so this is the API that everything you need is going to be imported through this Python code. So then you use the DAX-free API the same way you used to use before, writing your own scripts, Python scripts. You can write exactly the same way your workflow here. And once you have your DAX created, you just tell, okay, I have my instance. My instance is going to receive this DAX object. And then you could do, okay, I'm going to run this in some site that I defined, and you can monitor the execution. Also capabilities that we have, we're going to see on the demo too. You can visualize the workflow, how the workflow looks like, the abstract and the executable one. So I'm going to show an example of that. You can get some statistics of that too, and play with the site catalogs, replica and transformation catalogs. So I'm not going to go into the details now into that, because we have the demo with a real example of all of these. So what do you need to run this API? So as I just mentioned a few slides ago, you need to have we assume that you have a Pegasus submit node installed. So for that, you just need to download the Pegasus 4.8 or higher version. So here is the link for the downloads on the Pegasus webpage. You need Java, you need Python 2.7. This is because Jupyter requires at least a 2.7 plus now. And you install Jupyter, of course, in the same node. And then you just pop up Jupyter, and when you import your, as I said before here, when you import your instance, everything will be available for you. However, one caveat here, it's when you're trying to do Jupyter Hub, okay, so this is, for example, the example The demo we're going to see today, it's a Jupyter Hub that we have here in one of our servers. The Jupyter Hub, actually, they have a strict requirement of Python 3. So they cannot run on Python 2. So in order to us to make the API available in both Python 2 and Python 3, so when you run it in a Jupyter Hub or Python 3 at all, you need to install the Python filter package. So it will be compatible with the Python 3. So just be aware that if you wanted to run these things on Python 3, you need to install the filter package. And here it's a link to it. Basically, just a pip install, and you just put filter, and it's done. So it's very simple. So I'm going to go for the demo, and then I come back to these slides after. Before I start the demo, do you guys have any question, like overall question on the architecture, how we define the things? Okay. So please feel free to interrupt me anytime you want. So come back. So as I mentioned, we have our own Jupyter Hub deployed in one of our machines, the workflow.isi.edu. So there is my user. It's basically, this is my home folder with a bunch of files there. But there is one folder called Pegasus Office Hours. And this folder has two notebooks here. So these two are the ones we'll be seeing today. And you have an inputs folder that it's I keep some files for the two workflows that are going to run. One is the split that has just one input file, the Pegasus HTML, and the numd that has a little bit more input files available for the workflow. So just to show you here, if I do SSH to the machine, so I'm already on this machine. So you see I'm the workflow isi.edu. I'm in my folder, my home folder, Pegasus Office Hours, and this is exactly what I have inside. I have an input folder that has the files that I mentioned, and these two notebooks here. And there's nothing else. So if we start with the Pegasus DAX3 tutorial notebook, so this is a pretty, I would say not long, but a pretty comprehensive notebook. We're going to go through the details of that, but just to show you, that provides actually a basic tutorial on Pegasus. So it gives an introduction of what the Pegasus workflow system is, some automation, what it means automation, recovery and debug for us, and how we use that, the links to the Pegasus website, that you have a full tutorial on Pegasus in the documentation. We talk a little bit about what are scientific workflows, and then we start playing and developing one example workflow. So to show you this re-example running, so the first step, what you need to do is, as I mentioned before, we need to import the Jupyter instance. So we run that, it's imported. So now we have all our commands available. Then this is just for an illustration today. I'm saying that I'm using I get my home folder and say that I want my workflow to be created inside my home folder. That will be exactly my home folder, Pegasus Office Hours, workflow split tutorial. You are not required to provide this information. You provide except just if you really want a specific folder to be created. If not, the API automatically is going to take your home directory, take the name of your workflow, and create a folder based on that. So it's up to you. In this case, I like creating because I like to control where everything is going on my home folder. So here I just basically end up with a workflow D and a home, two variables here that I'm going to use later on. So for this first tutorial, we're going to do a very simple workflow called split. That it's we start with pegasus.html, so it's a HTML file with some words there that we're going to do a split command that is going to generate 4 different files, and each of these files will be the input for another word count file, and then we produce a count.txt file that it has the number of words that were available in each of these parts. So the first step, what you need to do when creating your workflow is just declare your abstract directed acyclic graph, your DAG object here. So we're going to create our DAX object that is called split. And then we here do the design of the workflow. That it's, as I said before, it's a very simple workflow. If you look here, we're going to have one split job and 4 word count jobs. So the way we do that is we create the file that we call the web page, that is the pegasus.html. We added this file to the DAX, and then we're going to add the first job, that is the split job. So the split job has some arguments that I'm passing here, including the file that it's going to be. And I'm telling that these split jobs use the web page, this file here, as an input. Okay, and then I add this job to the DAX. So at this point here, we have up to Pegasus and split defined in our workflow. We still need to define these output files that are going to be generated by the split. So the way we do that is we're going to have 4 jobs that is going to be A, B, C, and D, as we saw in the figure before. So here we're going to create actually what we call the part files that are part.A, part.B, C, and D based on the character of these 4. So here you see that we are saying that the split job that was created here afterwards use the part file as an output. Okay? And this is just telling that should I transfer this file back to the place where I'm running the workflow from, like the submit node or not? Should I register this to the catalogs or not? So since these are intermediate files, and basically I would say I don't care about them, I'm not transferring them back. So then we're going to create a count file that will be the count.txt.a, b, c, or d. As we see here, these are these output files for the word count. And we created the word count job. We add just a profile here. If you wanted to, for example, cluster these jobs based on the label, you can use label profile to do that. We add the arguments for the job. We just set the std out that of the job should be written to the count job, and say that this word count job use the part file as input and the count file as an output. And at this time, I wanted them to be transferred back to the submit node. So to finish, I'm going to add each of the word count jobs to the DAX and explicitly say the dependency. So I have a dependence from I'm telling that the word count job depends on the split job. So at the end, when you run this code, you're going to have this workflow here. So let's just create our workflow file. It has been created, the object. We assume that everything is created. We believe on that. We're going to see if it works or not in the future when we try to run it. And then Pegasus requires 3 information catalogs. That it's the site catalog, where you tell where you want to run your workflow, what are the places. The transformation catalog, you tell where are the executables for your workflow or your programs. And the replica catalog that keeps track of the, for example, in this case, the input data, and it's going to also add at the end the output data. So Pegasus uses these catalogs and this abstract workflow that was created. We just define here as using this API to generate the executable workflow based on where the input data is, where the transformations of the executables are, and where you want to execute it. So maybe it's going to add like staging jobs to move data to the place, to the computational infrastructure that you want to run. You're going to have the workflow execution itself, stage out the output data to wherever you ask for, and remove any file that it's still remaining on the system that you don't want to keep it there. So the way you do this here is you can create all of these catalogs using our APIs now. So as I just have one input data for this job, that is the pegasus.html file that we mentioned before, I'll just say I'm creating my replica catalog in the workflow directory we set up on the top, and add into this replica catalog my pegasus.html file, telling where it is. So if you see I showed before, it is my home directory, Pegasus office hours, input, split, and Pegasus HTML, and which site contains this input file. That is my local system from where I'm running the Jupyter Notebook. Then we do similar steps for the transformation catalog, where you're gonna tell I have two executables for my workflow. One is the split, and another one is my word count. And I'm telling, okay, my split command, this is the architecture of it. It's on Linux. It's already available. It's installed. And this is where you can find the split command on the site that I wanted to run my workflow. And you do the same for the word count command. You just tell this is my word count command. This is where you can find it on the site that I wanted to run my workflow. Thus, you just create the transformation catalog here and add both executables to your transformation catalog. Moving on, so one thing that I forget is I'm telling these guys and I'm not executing these things. So let me just execute them. Execute this one, executed that, so the replica catalog is created. Now the executables are available. I'm creating the transformation catalog. And the last one is the sites catalog that we're gonna define. I wanted to run my site that I call Condor Pool. It's Linux, architecture x86-64, and I'm telling that I'm run the basic Condor and vanilla setups. So I just add the profiles to my sites. So at this point here, what you have is you have everything that, going back in this figure, you define your workflow, that is the DAX the object. You have the sites catalog object, transformation catalog object, and the replica catalog object. So now we have everything that we need to run the workflow. So the only thing you need to do once you have that, I create an instance object that I pass my DAX, my replica catalog, transformation catalog, sites catalog, and I just tell on my workflow directory because I created a specific one. So I create this object here, and now the only thing you need to do is tell I wanted to run my workflow in this Condor Pool site. You should submit it right away. And this is just for me in this case, because as I run this workflow several times before, if I don't put the force through, what Pegasus is going to do is say, oh, the workflow is already completed, all the files are available, so I don't need to rerun this workflow. But in this case, I'm telling, even though everything is available, I wanted to rerun this workflow. So just to force this workflow for run. So once you do that, the API is calling the Pegasus plan, generating all the files in the folder. So if I go back here, what it's creating, let me show you. Now we have a new directory, WF split tutorial. Increase this a little bit. So if I go into this directory, you're gonna see all the files have been created there. So you have your DAX file, you have your sites catalog, replica catalog, transformation catalog, all the files required for running the workflow here. Everything is created and the workflow should be running now. So it tells you that this is where your Pegasus submittee was generated, so where your workflow files are. So if you want to, you can go in your system, log in and check just to be sure that everything is there. And while it's running as a short workflow, let me start this. You can check the status of the workflow. You can just run it, just status, and it's just gonna call once, or you keep you do want a loop, and you want to delay every 5 seconds to be checking what is the status of the workflow execution. So we already have 2 jobs that are completed, probably got 5 jobs queued now, and it's gonna run. It's pretty fast, so let's just wait a little bit, and you're gonna we're gonna finish this first example. So while it's still completing the execution, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. So by default, the delay here it's 10 seconds. So if you don't provide nothing, you just put loop through, every 10 seconds you'll be pulling to check the status. So it's almost done. There's a few more seconds and the workflow is going to be completed here. So again, as a reminder, while it's still completing, we have everything online here. Okay, you go to the pegasus.isi.edu, you have the documentation, there is a long user guide with detailed information. So, and also I strongly recommend you guys, if you want to go through the tutorial part, it's very comprehensive and you get all the information that you need to start using Pegasus. Let me go back to the page. Oh yeah, okay, it's completed 100%. So the workflow is done. So now you see this command is completed here. And then you can run the output. So this just lists the name of the output files. And if you just wanted to see what is inside, very simple test, you can do just inspect and it tells what is inside this output file. So this is a very simple tutorial just to illustrate how to use the API with the basic commands here. And a very naive workflow. But we have here a real one. So this is based on NumD. NumD, it's a nanoscale molecular dynamics application. It's very commonly used by material science people. So we have these developed from the SNS facility at Oak Ridge. So this is part of the workflow. Of course, it's not the whole workflow, but this is much longer execution. But the idea here is just to give you a little bit of flavor, that it's not taking this basic command and say, oh, it's nice, you can generate this simple workflow, but you cannot do something more fancier. Yes, we can do it, and it's basically the same steps. So again, here, you do the import for the API. It's available, exactly the same thing. I'm just creating the specifying the folder that I wanted to execute. So I just created a folder. I put the information again about the transformation catalogs. So here, as I mentioned before in the beginning of the talk, there are much more input data for this workflow. So this replica catalog here is going to have all the links to all the input data that is required, that it's into my home, Pegasus office hours, inputs, NumD, and then you get all of the required input data here. The transformation catalog this time will be a little bit different because we are not going to run on our own control pool based, but actually we're going to run on OSG, the open science grid. And so what I'm telling is I'm going to run NumD on open science grid, and this is where NumD is available there. Okay. Then I just add this executable to my transformation catalog. Then for my sites catalog, what I do is I define my contour pool. And if you notice there, we have a few more profiles here. That it's telling what is the project name that I'm using. So it's Pegasus training. And what is as a requirement, I'm putting like I wanted to be running on this system with this architecture and should have the model. So you can specify the profiles. This is how we are set up to run our execution on OSG. I already created the catalog. So at this point, you have the three catalogs defined. You define your workflow that you're going to see it's very similar. This is pure Python code. Again, you define your DAX object. Some parameters, so the temperatures you want to analyze, it's 200 and 250. You start creating the list of your input files exactly the same way as we did before. And now I'm not based on ABC anymore, but I'm based on it depends on the number of temperatures. Of course, the real execution of these workflows use much more temperatures than these two, but it's just an example. Based on the temperatures, you're going to have different input files. So this will be the equilibrate, 200.conf or 250.conf or whatever different temperature you specify. So you're going to get these 4 different additional input files here. I think there are some output. You define all the files that you wanted to be used by your workflow, and you come up and say, okay, this is my first job. My first job does a numd execution. You add some label based on the temperature, and you add the arguments. So what is the configuration file? Tell that this job actually requires much more input files. So it requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 input files, and it's going to generate 3 output files. And then you have your second job, that is another numd, but taking as input the output files from these ones here, do some new analysis and generate one only output file. And you just tell the dependency that you're going to have. Your production job is depends on your equilibrium job. Did I run that? No, not yet. I'm creating my DAGs there. Again, exactly the same way. I create the instance, passing the DAGs, the catalogs, and my workflow directory. At this time, we're going to run the workflow, but I don't want it to submit the workflow for now. I just wanted to plan the workflow. So what it's going to do, let me run it here. What it's going to do is generate all the files, prepare everything for submission, but not start the execution. So you need to start the execution by yourself in case you wanted to inspect something, just to take an idea. So let me show you here. Here now we have the numd that was created. So if you go into the numd tutorial, you have all the files available, but the workflow is still not running. So this is what it tells you. Please use the submit method to start the workflow execution. But before I start the workflow execution, I just wanted to show if you use the instance view, you can visualize how your workflow looks like. So this is how the abstract workflow looks like. So we run that. It's going to invoke 2 different commands from Pegasus. And your workflow is going to have one numd job for the 250 temperature, followed by another numd job in the production part of the 250 temperature, and another one for the 200, the same thing. So now that we check outside, everything looks nice. This is what I defined. So I wanted to run. You just do instance submit now. So this is going to submit a workflow. It says workflow has started execution. Please use the status method to follow the progress of the workflow execution. So again, just before going to status, now I want to say, okay, how my executable workflow looks like actually, because this is my abstraction, but I don't have any jobs talking about how I'm gonna stage in data, stage out data, or clean up. So you can visualize also, use exactly the same command, instance view, but at this time you say, I don't want to see the abstracted one. I wanted the executable one. And actually it's going to invoke and generate to you the executable workflow that you have. Again, the numd job, depending the 2 numd jobs for one temperature. This is for another temperature. And here you have creating directory jobs, staging jobs for each of these required numd jobs, cleanups, stage outs. So this is how your executable workflow looks like for the configuration we are running on OSG. So, and the last step is just we're going to run it, the workflow, so it's already 23% running. This workflow, we're not going to wait until the end because it takes about 20-25 minutes to run it, this small version. So, but the idea is to illustrate to you guys other features, and it's a real workflow that runs much longer, but the steps are basically the same. So if you learn the basic Pegasus tutorial with the split one, moving to a more complex one, the API is exactly the same. So come back to the slides. I just wanted to, there is one more slide that I have some references. So you have the documentation, official documentation on the Pegasus website. If you go to the documentation there is a Jupyter chapter. So let me show you here. There is a chapter, I think it's 15, yeah, on Jupyter Notebooks. So you have some information there. I also have the direct link here. The reference for the API. So what are everything that is available for the instance API, and the reference for the site catalog, replica, and transformations catalog API. An example tutorial notebook. So since Pegasus 4.8, this notebook here, that is the first one I mentioned, that has detailed information about Pegasus, is distributed with Pegasus. So if you install Pegasus, you can go into your shared folder and find the tutorial there. Or you can also have the information on our documentation. It tells you how you can find it. Also, Pegasus makes available a tutorial VM. So if you go into the download section part of the website, there is a Pegasus Tutorial VM here. So if you download this tutorial VM, it already comes with this tutorial for the Jupyter, the Python. So you don't need to install nothing. It's just a virtual machine. You install it. Jupyter is installed there with the tutorial into the home folder. And you can just start. So if you follow the instructions here, let me see, I don't want the other browser. Let me go back here. So the instructions actually is coming from this chapter, tutorial example notebook. So it tells you once you are in the tutorial VM, you just need to run Jupyter Notebook, browser Firefox, and it's going to open exactly this tutorial. And you can just tell if you want run all, and everything is going to run for you. And you can, go into the folder, see what's happening and how things are really happening. So I just wanted to share with you a few more channels of support that we have. So the Pegasus website that I think showed you a lot to you guys today. We also have a mailing list that it's directly mailed to all of us. The Pegasus support list. There is a HIP chat channel. So if you go to our website, and you're gonna see in the bottom we have a channel that you can just put your name, your email, and start chatting with us. So we try to be online as much as we can. Normally the hours, the working hours, like from 8-9 a.m. Pacific time until 5 p.m. we are always around. But sometimes we are also extra time, so it depends. But if not, you can leave a message there. We're gonna see your email. We're gonna reply to you. And I also wanted to remind you, we are started running these online office hours, like this one you are now in. And it's a bi-monthly based on the second Friday. So this is the second one. So please follow up. We always send reminders, but if you want, you can follow up on the website. So I just wanted to thank you, and let's open to questions if you have. And let me see here. Oh yeah, I just saw the question here, the tutorial posted anywhere. Yeah, so yeah, so this is our team. I want to thank you on every single person here doing all of this hard work from Pegasus. Pegasus has been around since 2001, so it has been a long-standing development. And last year we just got renewed for more 5 years, so we are very excited about that. I keep you on this page, so you have the links that you need. Everything is available online. This presentation is available online. The video will be available as soon as Gene's finished processing it. So please let me know if you have questions. I'll be around a few more minutes.
Hey, Raphael, no question, but thanks. This was really great. This is really, really exciting. I have to go back and watch the container one now.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, I didn't mention here because when you see on the container, we did an extension to the transformation catalog that you need to specify the container there. So the Jupyter API already supports it. So you can also specify the container for the Jupyter API. So maybe I need to develop one tutorial with the container. I think it would be nice too.
Yeah, very cool.
So you can do the containers from within the Jupyter Hub and Pegasus?
Yes, you can when you, for example, create here your site catalog, where I was creating that here, you can, transformation catalog, you can specify also the containers. So if your container is a Docker Hub or Singularity. Okay, any more questions? No, so I'd like to thank you guys for joining, and yeah, please contact us if you have questions, and I'm very eager to get feedback from these API. We are always improving. So if there is something that it's not clear or something that you think it's missing or it'd be useful for you, please contact us, and we try to do our best to make it work for you. Okay, I'm going to stop the record now.